Hello and welcome to Conversations. Conversations is a one-to-one on-site in-person interview series with most influential leaders from the world of air cargo and logistics from around the world. And this time we are coming from Delhi, where we are at the annual conclave of ACFI. And with me in conversation today is quintessentially a cargo man, and his name is Mark Sutch, Chief Commercial Officer of Cargo at IndiGo. Mark, great to have you for this interview.
Thanks, Reji. Always a pleasure.
Mark, besides the cargo responsibility, you quite recently had taken up another responsibility of rolling out the international long-haul wide-body operations of IndiGo. I definitely see a huge cargo potential there. Take us through the potential for cargo or the IndiGo's international wide-body long-haul flights, which just started last week.
Last week, that's great. Yeah, you're right, Reji. This is a really exciting time for IndiGo, not only from a passenger point of view, but cargo. And I'm here today very much with my cargo cap on, and it's air cargo is an industry I absolutely love. Okay, so last week we started 2 destinations in Europe, direct from Bombay, one to Manchester, one to Amsterdam, each 3 times a week. It's the beginning of a ramp up for many more destinations and capacity to come later this year. So as is publicly aware, we've signed up 6 aircraft from North Atlantic, so 787s. We have 1 with us today that is operating the routes that I've just mentioned. By mid-October, we'll be adding further destinations in Europe, specifically Copenhagen, followed by London. And as we go forward next year, we will also have the XLR complementing our passenger network. The XLR obviously is going to be a bit of a challenge for cargo. We know that, and we've always known that. But from a wide body point of view, I've said this before, Reji, when we've spoken, part of my remit was to get cargo more to the core of IndiGo. And to do that, you really need to grow up. And we're growing up now, okay? So we've gone from an all narrow body fleet to a couple of years ago experimenting with our 777 operation to a medium short destination of Istanbul. But now it's long haul direct into Europe. And this is a massive step for us. And it's a massive contribution that I think the cargo team is going to bring to the overall performance of IndiGo, both financially and as a brand as well.
Okay, let me also understand that you have 6 787 one right now operating.
Yeah.
You are basically stretching the operations of that aircraft 6 flights in a week, and you will have the second one and third one coming later this year.
Yeah.
And then maybe early 2028 you will have the A350s joining.
That's
so
right.
There is a huge potential in terms of belly cargo capacity available on your wide body network. I don't even look at the XLR because I don't think there is any potential for cargo.
Yeah.
Tell us the international cargo possibilities.
Well, as you say, Reji, it's huge. And this piece, the 787 piece, although it's fairly big, it's 6 aircraft and they're great cargo aircraft, as you know. This is just a taste of what's to come at IndiGo. As you know, last year we announced an order of 30 firm A350s with options beyond that. The recent IATA AGM, our CEO Peter Elbers extended that firm order to an MOU for another 30. So that's essentially 60. And you're right, 2027 is when they'll start to come. And that for us is huge opportunity for, obviously, for the taking the network from a passenger point of view. But with my cargo hat on, it's a huge opportunity. I've worked with the A350 before, and I know the potential it has. It's these modern jetliners, 787, 777, A350, are essentially small freighters in the air. That's how good they are. And so I think it's a huge opportunity for us as IndiGo to take ourselves to the next level in the cargo space.
And do you see you are optimizing the belly cargo payload capacity to the maximum?
Yeah, look, at the moment, we've only started Europe for the last week or so. We're doing great on that. We're both ways. We're surprised, well, not surprised, and we know the dynamics of the market and what happens in yields. But I think we're pleasantly surprised as a team how well we've adapted quite quickly to selling narrow-body domestic cargo. That's still 85% of our business, right? And then narrow-body international cargo, which is about 11% of the business. To sell this now we're into wide-body pallets, different product types, very different customer base as well. Very different customer base. We're starting to really engage with a lot of the big MNCs now. The players that I used to play a lot with when I was at, my previous company. Delighted to be back in this space. And we're doing I think we've had a really strong start and we've got a great future going forward.
Okay, and looking at the mix of cargo commodities, is there any specific trend that you notice, and how are you building up your network as you roll out Copenhagen in October and London, another important destination, and it's an important destination also for in perspective of a cargo. How are you building up your network, your teams across these regions?
Okay, so that's part of my other job, as you said, is the international development, is to build an IndiGo presence outside of India, right? A regional structure, and to build it in a cost-effective and a very efficient manner. But I want to just come back to that other bit that you touched on now, which was product, right? So cargo product. Look, I know the value of cargo product, and I know the kind of products that India requires. As IndiGo, we're still a young company. We're 18 years old. We've been in the narrow-body domestic cargo space really for the last 16 years. That's where we've been. We haven't built that product capability yet, but we've got someone in specially to do that now, because I recognize how important it is, and we're working on that. But what I'm not going to do, and I've said this to the team, I'm not going to promise something and not be able to deliver it, because you're dealing with people's cargoes here. So at the moment, we get a lot of pharma, but it's maybe passive pharma, right? We get a lot of general cargo. We do a lot of courier. We're doing DG. We're going to build that capability up to make sure that in pharma, for example, we have the unbroken cold chain that many of my competitors I know are great at, but there's room for us to improve there and to build that product. So we're gonna do that, Reji.
Mark, tell us about your presence in the domestic cargo market. You move a substantial amount of cargo within India in your expansive network. How strong is that? What's the kind of growth rate that you see in the domestic cargo?
Okay, well, domestic cargo, it's our core, actually. It's our core, and I know we're talking about all the wide body stuff, but let me come back to it. First of all, I like to give this sort of analogy. IndiGo is a 787 aside. We're a narrow body airline, single class, often referred to as an LCC, right? So when you say LCC, I think Ryanair, I think EasyJet, right, as other LCCs in the world, or Wizz, or even Southwest. Last year IndiGo carried 400,000 tons of cargo, the vast majority domestic, 400,000 tons of cargo. If you take our equivalent models in Europe or the US, well, in Europe, they don't carry a single kilo of cargo. In the US, Southwest is a huge organization, a great company, but when it look at the cargo numbers, IndiGo is doing a phenomenal job. Part of that is driven by our geography and the challenges of some of the parts of India we need to serve. Northeast, still very difficult in terms of road transport. But part of it is also driven by just a great team and the ability to be able to turn around an aircraft, not destroy anything in terms of our on-time performance, in terms of our turnaround times, offload cargo, onload cargo, and deliver some great value for the company.
Mark, I said in my introduction that you're quintessentially an Indian and a cargo man. There's so much love for the country. I'm sure that you're looking at India's position in the global air freight market. What are some of your immediate feelings about Indian air cargo's potential in the global space?
Well, to me, it comes all about value chain and India moving up the value chain. As I said earlier, I love that stat that 2% of the world's goods move by air, but it's 30% of value. And that's a stat that came out many years ago, and it could have changed a little bit, but I think it's a great stat. It's that 30%, that value, that is so valuable to air cargo. If COVID has taught us one thing, Reji, it's that supply chains are extremely fragile, okay? So you now see a huge number of organizations and companies looking at India as a manufacturing hub in high-value goods. India's always going to have a great heavy industry, right? And it's had that for years. But when it comes to high-value and value-added goods, that's where I see the opportunity for us. Today, there's not a single wide-body freighter in India, right? You look at China, hundreds of them, right? And look what they're exporting. Okay, we're a little bit behind the volumes of China, quite way behind at the moment, but rapidly catching up. That's where I see the potential, these high-value goods, right? Not only to domestic, and by the way, for me, domestic will be good as well, but that international space. So we've got a great opportunity, I think.
The stated aim of the government and India is about 10 million tons by 2030, and the deadline is fast approaching. What is working in its favor and what is not working in its favor?
Well, first of all, with my almost 500,000 tons, I like to think we're doing our piece. 10 million tons is a real stretch, but I think we're all optimists in this. You have to be an optimist to work in air cargo, given some of the setbacks we have on almost a weekly basis. What's working, what's not working? Okay, a couple of points on this. What is working is, I think, quite a lot of regulatory improvements have been made, whether it's customs and other areas. Where I'd like to see a further enhancement there is consistency of how that is done around the country. So consistency of how we interpret the regulations or the customs regulations. I often have
you did make a mention in your panel.
I have shippers who talk to me and say, look, I want to use this particular gateway because we find it's in line with the way in which we interpret customs, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing. And the other thing, which again has come up, and it comes up a lot, is transshipment. But one of the challenges in transshipment here, and I want to make this point because a lot of people, sit in India and they look at the success of Hong Kong, the success of Incheon, the success of Dubai. In a way, I get that. And they've got good geographies, but so have we. What they've got, though, is just a single hub. India's got multiple hubs. So how do we get around that? Do we identify one particular hub and say that's where the investment's got to be? And that's going to be difficult because you've got to look after all parts of the country. But you've got Delhi and Bombay, which are huge. You've got Bangalore and Chennai behind. You've got Hyderabad, a great airport as well. Can we spread all of our resources around these airports? That's another challenge. And I think we're doing a good job of it. But I do like to point that out when people look at sort of single airport hubs to say, well, they've got it a bit easier, to be honest. It's a challenge, but it's a massive opportunity going forward as well. So let's look at it as a challenge and see how we can get a head around it and decide how we're going to strategize how to use that. But let's also say, hey, we've got a brilliant opportunity because we've got capacity here. And the minister this morning talked about how the capacity of the airports is actually almost at that 10 million, or it's soon to be at, I think it is at that 10 million. We've now got to catch up with that, but it's 10 million that's spread across multiple hubs, and that's a challenge for even airlines like us. It's a challenge.
But do you see a scenario of India having 3 or 4 hubs as India's hub for transshipment? You have Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, probably.
I do, and I think that's practically the way we have
to go. That's practically viable.
We can't have 10.
Yeah.
We can't have 10, and I don't want to favor any airport over another, right? Because they're all great, and we work with all of them. But I think from a practical point of view, that's the way it's got to go. I think today the stat came out that said between Bombay and Delhi, you've got 70% already. So that's kind of natural anyway, and that's going to gravitate towards that sort of thing. But I think we have to be realistic and say, look, we can't have 10 hubs. It's hard enough with 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Mark, the final question on the outlook for 2025 and what has been the experience in the past 3 months or 4 months of the fiscal, April, May, June, and maybe the first half of 2025, and how do you look at the outlook for 2025?
Okay, I'll break that down, Reji, if I can, into a couple of stages. So looking at our growth last fiscal, we grew from 350,000 to 400,000 tons, so significant growth there. And I don't see any reason why, given our capacity is growing, we can't take that forward. From our IndiGo point of view, we've obviously got the induction of the 787s that you talked about, and that's huge for us, right? So by early next year, we'll have 6 of them. By middle of, October, November, we'll have 4. So that's great capacity. We've also got an opportunity, and we've taken that opportunity with the freighters. Came a couple of years ago, those freighters were just doing a couple of hours utilization a day. That's up to 8, 9 at the moment, right? So
and you have 4 of them.
We have 3. We have 3, and that's where we're going to stick. And we're turning them into a good business now. We're really understanding how to use them, which is great. And the other piece is just the natural growth of IndiGo. 900 aircraft on order. Okay, they're not coming all at once. They're coming maybe 1 a week. But by default, we're growing our network. Now we know that some of that growth is going to be on sort of tier 2, tier 3 cities where there's not huge cargo, at the moment. But that's a place we're actually looking at. The metro to metro is obviously the majority of where our cargo is at the moment. But we see, and the team and I are really looking at how we can serve these other cities, right? And there's a lot of point-to-point stuff that's going on that will avoid having to transship through Delhi or Mumbai or Hyderabad. And that's another opportunity, that sort of second, third tier city where essentially we've got, very light cargo holds and we want to fill them up.
Mark, as always, such a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reji. That's great.